Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back with another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, May 30th. We've got a watch and learn, which is kind of great because if I can just like wait until Loki here gets into a game and watch him, then that gives me a ton of free time. Let's trade out this one to cover news, because it's taken me quite a while to actually not cover a lot of news, frankly. And there's going to be a lot of news as E3 gets closer and closer. So seems just, come on, Loki. Loki used to be a big commentator on the chat, and I guess he got more into Hearthstone. Frankly, he's doing way better than me, than he did watching other people play Hearthstone, and because of that, like, he kind of stopped watching me. It seems like he stopped talking, at least. Maybe he still watches. But I certainly miss him. I recently watched a YouTube video where somebody talked about like several of their people, that their fans that had followed them and talked to them, and he actually was recalling specific details about the people and their exact names, and he had like 77,000 subscribers. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's something I wish I could say I would be able to do. That's something I'd aspire to do. The video was about how big, or even mediocrely big, YouTubers, people with barely 1 million subs, all of a sudden get too big for their fans and get rude and obstinate. I guess in the meanwhile we need to do a monster hunt run, so let's do that. We also need to do the tavern brawl and several things. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm getting these monster hunt runs for my account that's done them all, so yeah, that doesn't really make sense. There's no reason to motivate me to continue to play this monster hunts. I've already won them, gotten the card pack. Certainly getting a card pack for getting 3 victories, particularly in battles like this where it doesn't even require as much effort, is great. But it is also a waste of time, since so many of the metrics in Hearthstone are built around getting ranked victories. Like, I think we may have to play an arena run even today, and that's an insane thing to say, but we may have to do it just to build some time out. We've got a game on Steam called Cognizer. It looks like some kind of single screen puzzle game that I don't fully understand. The symbols are very basic. The background is black. Looks like it might have been a cell phone game. It's free though, but then there's a bunch of donation levels, and let's see, 1 positive review, and that's it.
I'll give it a shot. 4 kill Naias!
Let's see. 21 Steam achievements. In a way, Cognizer feels like it is the right way to release your first game on Steam. Make it free, make the levels donation, don't go crazy, don't do a bunch of asset flips. This certainly still has some problems. Like, it's not quality work. It's not something that I would say should be on Steam, but at least it's not a very low effort game. And frankly, the difference between it and a very low effort game is the fact that it feels like this developer specifically and intentionally was trying to make a game first and not make something that was a sellable product or a scam. Moving on, every stream we go into so many of these visual novels. If they really did all just get banned from Steam, it would be less work for me. So if in some stupid way I would be willing to hurt the video game industry and become pro censorship and hurt free speech just for my own slight benefit of having about a third less games to talk about each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like I could see the argument for all of them being kicked off Steam, but frankly that's certainly a ridiculous idea.
The trail leads here. Put down your weapons.
And so we have the internship. Young, talented student Carly appears, applies for a job as an assistant to business lady Jan. They're not gay, but one night might change their lives. Try to find out what happened once in an office. Alright, so the animation style from the thumbnail, which I guess that's what you call it, is not great. Very Western style. There's a lot of in fact it's very reminiscent of Western toon porn style. Like the proportions are all out of the place. Giant breasts, incredibly hourglass narrow hips, just height, face. The characters don't have noses. The hair doesn't have textures and shadowing. Really bad animation here. And there's only about 5 pictures, and it's English, traditional Chinese, and simplified Chinese, and it includes 3 Steam achievements, but it is also from apparently the developer who makes one of the developers at least that makes.
Does this mean you're not in
the achievement games, because they're also on this page selling 80,000 plus achievements for $15, 50,000 achievements for $9.
Go on.
No reviews here. So it's a cheap Chinese knockoff of a visual novel from the troll developer who made like several other games. I was having a thought about Steam. Is there, I imagine there probably is some kind of system where you can't name your game some name of another game that is bigger, because we don't have people that are blatantly releasing games that are called Fall Space Out. And that, I don't think, is just because Bethesda is suing them all out of existence. There would be a bunch of troll games like that. So somebody, at least in this one instance, is actually looking at the names of games, and there's no Grand Theft Auto not made by Rockstar popping up. It gets a little bit weirder. Say you had a game you wanted to release and you called it Agony, and then this big AAA developer has a game called Agony, and then it gets a little bit weirder if they're coming out about the same time, or if Agony is coming out like years later.
I'll give it a shot.
Let's see. Moving on, Gamasutra has a report. Xbox support staff help train unpaid replacements before being laid off. The folks at Polygon are reporting that a number of people who lost their jobs as Xbox support staff earlier this year have seen some of their former duties taken over by unpaid participants in the Xbox Ambassador program. So it's not as simple as some unpaid interns, which that's my first thought would have been, is that this is unpaid interns were being trained by support staff, and they're going, oh yeah, we're helping these people and these interns and giving them skills. Loki apparently still hasn't. There we go. Give Loki a second to get a match and we can do a watch and learn. But apparently they shifted some of the responsibilities. So it becomes less gross in that instance. I'm gonna spectate and get a watch and learn. In my opinion, at least, because yeah, if you're laying off staff and then you're taking portions of what they were doing and getting other people to do it for free, that seems like an America and the United States company, basically, that would love to do that for everybody. It doesn't seem as terrible as other stories we've seen where, for instance, Disney is bringing in foreign workers that are getting paid below minimum wage and then forcing high-paid animators that actually had skill to train those foreign workers to replace them at threat of their severance pay. Which inherently, I think people should assume that they're never going to get their severance pay and screw the companies over and just say, screw you, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not going to train these people. I'm going to make it impossible for you to get your job done. I'm going to pull off this scheme. Because the corporations succeed at these schemes all the time because they're getting supported. They're dangling a few paychecks in front of people, and that's all severance pay is, really. It's literally a extortion scheme. It's literally always an extortion scheme to make a employee that you are treating badly treat you better than you're treating them. That's the only time we hear about it, at least. Maybe there's other incidences where you don't hear about it. The article goes on, this is potentially a big deal because some of the former employees kept anonymous by Polygon alleged that they helped to train Xbox ambassadors before they were laid off, with one source claiming they were specifically tasked with increasing the ambassadors' input on support issues. If that's true, it sure looks like Microsoft cut some support staff, reportedly around 12, all hired through IT consulting firm Affirma Consulting, and replaced them with unpaid labor in the form of ambassador participants. The ambassador program has been around for years and offers participants the promise of potential prizes and recognition in the future for help with solving Xbox customer service queries. You must have, among other things, an active Xbox Live Gold account membership and over 1,500 gamer score to be an ambassador, 1,500 being an incredibly low amount of gamer score. Gamasutra has reached out to Microsoft for confirmation and clarification on the issue. As always, if you or someone you know is affected, email Gamasutra to share your story confidentially. This doesn't really feel like it's much news as much as it's sour grapes of 12 people that may have been laid off for any other reason. And it's pretty typical in general for Microsoft to lay people off. They overhire and lay people off all the time. What in the world? Oh yeah, I forgot I'm not playing. It's like, why are the cards not responding? It's because I'm not playing, duh. Loki's playing. Let's move on. While we're letting Loki. Your game has an article for its first few hours. Pokemon Quest is a passive sort of fun. There is a considerable amount of Pokemon news that was trickled out last night. Probably what would be early morning Japan. Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee are remakes of Pokemon Yellow with new systems, integration with Pokemon Go, 2-player co-optional of some sort, very possibly the second player is just an assist character that doesn't keep any stats, a blocky pixelated game called Pokemon Quest, a Pokeball accessory that acts as a controller, which I'm almost certainly going to buy one of those even though I don't own a Switch. As soon as I see somebody can hack that Pokeball controller and see how many inputs it actually has, I'm probably going to hack it for a mouse or something. I kind of wonder if the sales of Let's Go Eevee are going to be somewhere around 1/4 as high as the sales of Let's Go Pikachu. You play the Let's Go games with one controller, and that seems kind of crazy. And you're using one Joy-Con as if you were holding both Joy-Cons in one hand, but you're just using one. I guess the truth of the matter is you don't need it. You flick the Joy-Con forward to throw a Pokeball. It's gonna have all 150 of the Johto region Pokemon. I guess it won't have Mew, but it will have Mewtwo. Or maybe it will have both. Like, it's a really great announcement because it affirms what we probably all should have known and suspected, that the next Pokemon games will be on Switch. This is a great time for the parents who play Pokemon when they were kids to introduce Pokemon to their kids in a better fashion. Let's now leave. We've now got 2 packs to open. Arguably, because like there's probably a speedrunner's dream in the Let's Go game, because you could probably have an account on your Pokemon Co account that had all of the Pokemon, trade those over to a new save file, and then immediately speedrun through the rest of the game with maybe max level every single Pokemon, complete Pokedex. In general, I imagine the Pokemon game, which was always an RPG game for kids and introductory RPG games, will be even more accessible, aka casual, aka easier, which is fine with me. Like, and I recall when I was playing Pokemon, I didn't find it particularly beneficial or fun to. I guess I just need to cast spells now. Did I get the Terran Girl done? I'm pretty sure nope. Didn't. Alright, well. Mage. And this. And this. And that. We'll just double what? Time. That. See, I really just want to cast spells. There we go. Should be good enough. Let's brawl and see how that works. We know also, even though these Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee games are remakes of Pokemon Yellow, they are also working for 2019 to have a full new version of Pokemon. Slight divide there. If you don't like the Pokeball flicking on Let Pokemon Go, or Joy-Con flickering and waggling in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, that mechanic is not going to be in the 2019 game. But I think, frankly, you should probably just be prepared to do that every time. Maybe they'll be generous and have multiple systems. Is there anything else really to say about Pokemon right now? No, we'll probably get more in a Nintendo Direct a few days before E3, and also we'll probably have some other issues that pop up and appear. Let's just wait till next turn. Moving on with news. I really need to rush through all this. Gamasutra has an article, Get a Job, Total Domination developer Plarium Ukraine is hiring a games writer. So if you want to work in Kharkiv, Ukraine as a games writer for Plarium, creators of Total Domination, Stormfall, Age of War, and Sparta War of Emperors, check that out. The good news is a lot of the games on Steam that I have open are garbage looking games. Same is true for this 59-cent game called Space Hurricane Storm. It is just a shooter, you know, a space shooter, bullet hell shooter type game, and not animated well. Let's see. This.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Job's done.
We've got a game called Zombie Rampage. Terrible animation in an extremely dark. Everything is in shadow and black. There's no textures at all, really. 40% off for $5.99. Nobody's gonna pay that much for a game that looks that bad. Let's move on. Gamatsu has an article. Walmart leaks Team Sonic Racing announcement. So apparently there is a Switch game called Team Sonic Racing. Not a huge leak really. Says it has online multiplayer and local co-op modes. All this take with a grain of salt. Team racing, performance and skin customizations, Wisp's 14 spectacular offensive and defensive items, adventure modes, and various characters and classes. So it seems like it is Mario Kart, except for you're not in karts, you're in cars, and that's kind of all it is. It's just a Mario Kart ripoff. Maybe it will come out for other things. The tags on it are PC, PS4, Switch, Xbox One. So it seems like it very possibly might come out to other consoles. Although all the pictures right now say Switch. And I don't know why Nintendo or Sega specifically would be happy with making a game like that is just going to be a copy of a better game. Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called Chocolate Makes You Happy 6. which is made by a developer who makes a bunch of, well, they're rated good games for the most part, but they really are extremely low effort games. I don't know how they get the good reviews. Maybe it is just vote manipulation. Chocolate Makes You Happy 6 is like the 6th in a series for 74 cents, 25% off of a just puzzle game. I guess it's a one-screen puzzle game that delivers on what it says it is, and it doesn't betray anything. It's just kind of a mediocre enough entity that nobody
bubbles, but I take. Unravel.
Next game we have is called Piano Simulator. Is it a VR game? It doesn't seem like it is. Requires a third-party EULA. It's English and Russian. So if you have any question on what kind of game it is, it's another low-effort Russian game from the creator of Gym Simulator and Internet Simulator. Very basic 3D images, not horrible looking, frankly, but there's just like nothing here. This is a demo, this is a concept, not a game. Gamma Sutra, this is somewhat big story, but frankly it isn't a big story, and the real story is how this never should have been a big story in the first place, and was made one. Valve has removed the mass shooting game active shooter and its quote troll developer from Steam. The team at Valve seemed to have unceremoniously delisted the upcoming mass shooting simulator active shooter from Steam today, calling the developer a quote troll with a history. This is a big deal because the alleged game developer in question, Revive Games, aka ATA space BERDIYEV, which is either a Russian name or a made-up name, in my opinion.
An incredible discovery.
Seems to have a storied history of making terrible games, often by reusing assets and intellectual property of others, and then quickly having them removed from Steam. Okay, so we know who this guy is. Let's see. It's also significant given that the alleged video game in question purports to put players in shoes of either a mass shooter or law enforcement personnel attempting to stop them, and thus quickly earn the public ire of mass shooting survivors, the parents of victims and survivors, politicians, and basically anyone with a conscience. There's them editorializing. We have removed the quote. We've removed the developer, Revive Games, and publisher Acid from Steam. A Valve representative told Motherboard. Developer and publisher is in fact the person calling himself something else, who had previously been removed last fall when he was operating as BC Interactive and Exclusive Team. The quote, another quote goes, Ada is a troll with a history of customer abuse, publishing copyrighted material and using review manipulation. The rep continued, which the thing here is we kind of already knew that this was the case. Like, with a 100% certainty, I knew this game was not going to come out for one reason or another. And this is why my system of actually only talking about games when they come out is so much better. Because the upcoming games list is a nightmare of games like this, of just people saying they're going to release games and then not really releasing them, or saying their game is going to be one thing and then it turns out to be something completely different. It's just trolling. Let's see. The rep continued, quote, his subsequent return under new business names was a fact to call light as we investigated the controversy around a fact that came to light as we investigated the controversy around his upcoming title. We're not going to do business with people who act like this towards our customers or Valve. The broader conversation about Steam's content policy is one that we'll also be addressing soon, and there seems like that is in which that's the point where the trolls may very well be winning, because if they can convince people at Valve to crack the whip and have stringent control over real products, while the trolls can continue to make a new business name and come back and continue to troll, they've helped ruin Valve in a lot of ways, in the same way that a lot of social media sites like Facebook is a great example. Is like, if Facebook, which it probably did, tightened its controls against real people making real legitimate speech, meanwhile they're trying their best to stop trolls, but the trolls will never be stopped. The article ends saying it's worth pointing out that earlier this month Valve's content policies were publicly called into question after developers began reporting threats of removal from Steam over games the company deemed to have inappropriate adult content. And see, the two stories seem, at least in Valve's mind and Gamasutra's mind, to now be connected. And there's a big difference between the Honey Dev developer making Honey Pop and making a real game that people actually want to play, and a troll developer not even getting to the point to actually release a game that people might want to play, and frankly not offering anything that anybody wanted to play anyways. I don't think. Frankly, if people did want to play active shooter and there's a great demand for it, people would be able to find it still, I'm sure, online, if that game ever was actually coming out, which I don't think it was. I heavily suspect there was no game ever made that this was simply a Counter-Strike mod or an animation, not an actual interactive game that was actually ever. I'm going in circles saying it, so yeah, I just don't think it was ever a playable game, and I know it was never coming out. PC Gamer has win $500 worth of games with Fanatical. Fanatical's Bundle Fest celebrates a giveaway. Learn how to enter inside. PC Gamer does this all the time, so like you sign up for things, and like maybe with the GDPR people shouldn't sign up to these giveaways anymore, but I probably will, because certainly I could do with 1,000 things. I definitely want to move my Steam account over. It's at, I believe, 901 right now, at least last time I looked. Maybe some games got taken off Steam and a couple disappeared, but I'd like to get over 1,000, just as a thing that I could put on a resume, at least, is that my YouTube channel had over 1,000 games to pick from. I don't know how I would phrase that. It's like over 1,000 games in my library. Maybe it's more of just a spiritual victory that I emotionally would want to. I guess it's mostly that. Gematsu has an article, Tayutama 2, You're the Only One, is coming to the PS4 and the PS Vita on September 28th in Japan. Let's see, it's a romance visual novel selling for 6,980 yen. Let's see. I doubt it'll come to the West though, or if it does, it's gonna take a while. It could be that Japanese visual novel makers do intend to bring a lot of those to the West on Steam or something, but it just takes them forever. But honestly, I think at this point it's much more realistic that we see fewer and fewer actual Japanese visual novels and more cheap Chinese knockoffs, cheap low-effort Russian visual novels. We see a few Korean, Taiwanese, but not too many. It's mostly just rip-offs of the thing that worked in past. It certainly also could be just right down to
Unravel
a issue of maybe visual novels don't sell that well anymore, and the Chinese and Russian clone makers are late to the party. That could be it too, but I think a lot of it is just Japanese now only want to sell on Japanese stores and they don't want to sell on Steam for a few reasons. Here we have a game on Steam called Savannah Shot VR. It's a VR game while you're hunting in the savannah. 20% off for $11.19. I guess if you have a burning desire to hunt savannah animals, doing it in VR is better than doing it in real life. Graphics don't look awful. They look a little cartoony and lack in realism. But it doesn't look terrible. Alright, so this is what I was gonna do. Can I do this and this? No. I do this and this. We can do this. And we can do this. Let's see. The creator of this game makes all kinds of other VR games, and most of them never get rated, but the 3 that have are positive, so Savannah Shot VR seems like a niche, but if it's a niche that interests you, then there is that. Let's see, how much of this Pokemon news did I not cover? I think I covered it all. Pokemon Quest, by the way, has been announced for Switch and smartphones, so this is probably the first incidence of ever seeing a Switch game and a cell phone game competing. There, I guess, is some possibility that some other game has done that before. Let's see. Next game we have is called Trash Story, and it's terrible MS Paint graphics, and it looks like a trash game. 333 achievements, selling for 20% off for $2.38. Let's move on. Variety, which is not a news reporting site I follow very often, but it follows all. has an article, Interactive Gaming Ventures and Epic Games to fund indies using the Unreal Engine 4. The funny thing here is I'm pretty sure they announced this initiative a long time ago. So Variety is just kind of catching up.
I wonder.
It's nice and all, it's a self-serving donation, certainly, those to help indie people that you approve of making games on the engine that you have. Here we have an English only, what looks like a visual novel, but it's labeled as an adventure casual game with terrible Western graphics. And just flat, like no tone, texture lines or anything. A lot of background pictures that look like they are actual photos that have just been run through a cheap Photoshop filter. And let's see. I mean, I can't immediately say this is an extremely low effort game. It's just a extremely low quality game. Like, sometimes the difference isn't that much. It's 20% off for $3.99. Let's see. And they're calling it an episodic novel fighting with zombies via clicking. So there's probably some kind of clicker game in it. Element. The Among the Dead just does not look good. Let's see. Here we've got a game called Cairo, C-A-I-R-O''S, Tail, the Big Egg. And probably the first game today we've seen that actually looks good. It's a 3D cutscene that I'm seeing in this trailer. It looks like you're gonna be platforming or something. Most of
What to do?
maybe. See, what does it say? Adventure, indie, casual, education, VR, movie. Okay, it's a movie. I have to remember to eliminate movies.
Job's done.
That explains why I wasn't seeing any gameplay.
Relax.
Okay, so it's an animated VR short, English only, 99 cents. If you have VR and you wanted to show it to kids, Carrier's Egg, Carrier's Tail might be the right name. Carrier's Tail, the Big Egg. Let's see, there's nothing else made by this developer. And the publisher has only published a couple other games. Let's see, we're slowly playing spell cards, but frankly I don't think I need to play them from the Tavern Brawl because that's not speeding the process up any. I don't know why I'm specifically trying to speed the process up, but let's play a Little Wild Secret Mage at rank 25, the lowest rank possible. Next game we have is called The General Retreats. It looks like it's a asset flip game. They say it's a puzzle game. Steer your vehicle through dangerous battlefield, avoiding bombs, artillery, and enemy tanks. Every attempt plays exactly the same way. You can learn the safest move. So it's like you're thinking of how you're going to drive this car via a grid in a 3D world, which doesn't like really add anything for being in 3D. It's $4.99. It doesn't look good. I could see this puzzle game being implemented as a flat 2D game and it just being more understandable and playable from a top-down perspective. But there's nothing else this developer's made, and they want $5 with no discount for this thing. Looks like it could have been a cell phone port.
Greetings.
Is someone injured?
Moving on. We already talked about Trash Story. We already talked about this. See, my plugin that is supposed to close duplicate tabs is not working. And that might be a good thing because it might mean that all of my tabs at this point are duplicates. We've got a game called The Singularity Wish. It's an RPG Maker game. What can you say? English only, $1.99. RPG level graphics, RPG Maker level effort, I'm sure. Like, even the games that are good efforts that use RPG Maker still have that level of graphics that I find just so completely offensive that I don't have any interest in them. The next game we have is called Bathroom Chef. It's CHEF, so not Chief. And I'm watching a trailer of a smiley face sitting on a toilet. And it seems like it's a tapping game where you simulate pooing. And that's all the game is. Yep. And see, this is not animated well or interesting enough to even be worth playing if it was free, but it's 25% off for $1.49, so even at that, it's asking way too much. This was the game that was mentioned on the Co-Optional podcast, which I'm waiting for the next Co-Optional podcast to happen to go on to a full rant there, assuming another one ever does happen, because Total Biscuit died. Because I haven't heard anybody who knew Total Biscuit say anything about his passing yet, and I'd like to respond to that. There's also some, like, a lot of trouble that Total Biscuit was in for basically starting a witch hunt with his Twitter account a few years ago, but now is probably not the best time to cover it. I want to tie that into his what other people say to him. There's also just some weirdness in general about how Total Biscuit really was way more popular than he should have been, considering he was just kind of covering StarCraft and World of Warcraft stuff. This will be the last game for this recording. Gematsu has an article. Yamawari, the Long Night Collection announced for the Switch, includes both Yamawari Night Alone and Yamawari Midnight Shadows. Now, I know I've heard of Yamawari, but I think I need to watch the trailer to remind myself which of the many weirdly named Japanese games this is. Seems like it's a top-down isometric perspective game where you're walking through a dark area with flashlights, and it seems like monsters can attack you and jump scares. It's almost like a kiddie version of Ghost, though, like slightly scary and probably oddly too scary for kids, but animated in a kid-friendly style, which is weird. Certainly something that we've done in the past for like the Ghostbusters cartoon, and also just gets tonally odd. Since this is an NIS game, I imagine it will come out to the West. Key features are a definitive childhood horror experience, 2 haunting towns to explore, ruin your life, child. Okay, so that's interesting. I'll be interested to see if that comes out. We have a game on Steam called Detective Gallo. I believe this is a point and click I already have on my wishlist. It's as we go week to week, I think I'm going to start running into more and more games that may have been talked about earlier on PC Gamer and I would have wishlisted. Now I'm more about waiting until the game is actually available. There's still probably a considerable amount of games on my wishlist that haven't been released, some of which haven't been released for 3 or 4 years. I was definitely debating about taking at least one game off that had been in early access pre-release for 3 years. And you know when you added it to the wishlist, so it's even longer than that. Detective Gallo, G-A-L-L-O, is this like penguin bird-like creature. It's a really cartoony point and click comedy type game. It's 15% off for $12.74, which is a little expensive for a point-and-click adventure game. It doesn't have any reviews yet, but that doesn't particularly deter me. We're not seeing an episode 1 or chapter 1, and yes, this is the only game from this developer. And the publisher published Shadows of the Vatican Act 2 and Act 1, both of which I do want to play at some point, but they are mixed in their reviews. So apparently they also own the St. Christopher's School Lockdown soundtrack, but not the game. And a game called The Wardrobe, which, well, look at The Wardrobe and see what game that is. Let's see, The Wardrobe is another point-and-click adventure game that I guess I want to keep an eye on. I want to get back to playing point-and-click adventure games, I guess. I've taken a little bit of a break from them, and I suppose it's now time to go back.
Just like you.
Get this. Here we've got a game on Steam called Bless Online. It's an early access MMORPG, massively multiplayer RPG game. It looks good, but animation can be particularly deceiving when you're talking about MMOs and online games. This game has an all-time peak of 34,392, which is really high considering it came out today. Third-party EULA, which kind of makes sense. Early access $39.99. 45 Steam achievements. You can play as
Awaken my children.
a nice-looking collection of characters. It certainly would be a better looking game than World of Warcraft looks like, but World of Warcraft is specifically trying to be this kid-friendly appearance. Let's see.
Ready. Here come.
The first review says, let's skip that. Here we have a guy that says, I was a founder, I have 5.6 hours on record, and I asked for a refund. I played the Japanese and Korean version and was hoping to see huge improvement, but nothing much changes besides the combat bar, which in my opinion still really doesn't stand out and is unbalanced. Translation, oh boy, did they just Google Translate everything and not proofread at all. At least proofread the tutorial quests 1 through 10. In fact, the skills descriptions are straight out of fan-made Japanese English patches. So the reason why it's mixed is this is just a terrible English patch of a apparently Korean slash English no, Korean slash Japanese game. It's really pretty. It's a shame they didn't work with somebody. And this version of the game only comes in English and German subtitles, and if you see a game that's only English and German subtitles, then I think you pretty much are trying to only sell it in English-speaking nations like the United States, UK, Canada, and you probably couldn't even sell it in some parts of Canada, but you could probably get away with it. But if you're going German as your only secondary language, that means you're probably a Japanese company, because the Japanese have a strange affinity for Germans due to their history and just weirdness. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of law that Japanese and Korean people misinterpret to say that your game has to be in German to be sold in Germany, whereas all the other games, all the other languages don't have to be supported in Europe, so maybe they think that's a full European release. Again, Bless Online, visually appealing, but I guess it says it has single player, but I don't think there's actually anything really to do in single player. So I have to close that as an option. So where are we now? We are slowly 4 more spells, we're going to be done, and then we need to just go back to the Asian account and do a tavern brawl and get a victory there, and then I think we need to go back to the European account and get a watch and learn. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.